The ASX 200 is where it was last week, except the momentum profile has been deteriorating at the same time. So much so that last week we had 44% better than normal odds of finding good momentum trades to now being only 14%. So that poses the question, is momentum still leading? Are there still momentum leaders with runs to go, or are they all breaking down? So we've picked out 15 of the strongest momentum companies in this week's report and identified that so many of them are sitting within that critical mineral space. And we've got 10 of those plays to run through. And then we also look at the launch pad, where we want to be seeing if the momentum is cooling off, where we find those new leaders emerging from that are gaining momentum this week. And there's 5 financial services in there, plus 10 others that Gary's going to run through. So it's a lot to get through. We say good morning, Gary Glover from Novus Capital. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, that's an interesting market. Actually, it's sort of it's still set up. We're still seeing setups there. I probably seeing a slight increase in setups breaking down, but I don't know if you sort of like I'll take an increment off on multiple, and then I'll move the rest to break even and trying to catch the bigger move. So I've been finding that my most recent trades I'm hitting one multiple, but not getting the next multiple and hitting sort of like getting a half move and then failing.
So it's not powering through with as much gusto as
Yeah. Which means we take a little bit off and then you get the rest of break even. You're still banking something. You're just not banking big. But you're still making some money, just not making big money. But there does seem to be a few new sectors emerging here, which is interesting. And that's what we want to see. We want to see, the market has a bit of weakness. And other sectors are breaking down. We want to see some new sectors emerging. So that's definitely starting to see that take place. And there's a couple of sectors in particular that are definitely catching my eyes. A few on the launch pad there this week, and then there's a few, just a few sectors there that are just sort of starting to set up and become pretty interesting.
Well, as we're talking about those sectors lining up and showing us promise, critical minerals has been the main focus for the last couple of weeks. Alinus, Trump, we saw that on the cards last week. We saw the charts light up. It's now been signed and penned, and the questions are coming in. Hang on a second, why are they all falling when this has been, I think you said buy the rumor, sell the fact last week.
Yeah.
When you look at those critical minerals, are you seeing sort of that kind of doubt that you were talking about, where we're not kind of getting the same runs, or what's popping out to you critical mineral wise?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably something like Alinus has been a leader in that space. So that sort of had that great hot run, probably led the group, to be honest with you. And now started getting a bit volatile. So that's kind of interesting there. If you look through your leadership group there, so the stocks that have been pretty strong here. So, Arafura, Arc Mines, Lovato, Toro, Global Lithium. So you get a mix of sort of lithium, one uranium, or a couple of uranium in there, sort of few battery minerals. So those sectors are still pretty firm here, but we have seen a little bit of a cool off in some of those names there. I think AR3, I noticed, what we notice is that, when the trend's really hammering, it's pretty, like that large chart just tells you everything, because really it's pretty strong. Consolidations are tight, and then it's strong, consolidations are tight. It's, strong, tight, strong, and then now it's starting to get loose. So that's a concern there. So volatility is normally greatest at the bottom, or near the lows, or near the highs. So if you start seeing that increase in volatility, that can be a little bit of a concern there. So we want to sort of, like Kalinagi says, loose is for losers and tight is for winners. We want to see those sort of tight setups there. I noticed like COB was sort of number 3 on the list there, and that's had a pretty big correction. I mean, it's gone to 36 and already pulled back to 16. So that's not tight. That's come back more than 50% of the range now, and a bit of selling through there as well. So that's not really what we want to see. We want to see strength. Then we want to see consolidation, that sort of tightness there. So, so those rare earths have been strong here, but they are getting a little loose, which is not ideal. We want to sort of see tightness there. So, I mean, that SNS, number 6 there, see how that went up pretty strong, and then the whole thing sort of tightened up in a bit of a VCP, and then we had a little bit of a break there around that. I'd say that's a little B-wave break here, somewhere around sort of 82, 83, and then that's had a bit of a run after that. So you want to see that strong move, the whole thing tighten up, and then emerge again. You don't want to see it come back too deep. Has decided to go offline.
Yeah, right. Iris. How about that? So as that's coming back,
It's actually on the list. That's well, Chris.
That's the comical thing about Iris. So as that's coming back online, you did mention you were going through the list, and we know Iris can sometimes do that and it'll suddenly explode with Gary's workspace. We're looking at the rare earth elements, so critical minerals. That includes, from this perspective, lithium, rare earths, uranium, vanadium, antimony, indium, and fluorite. Now, you said Arafura mines. You also mentioned ARC mines. So far, you've also looked at Toro and AR3 Austria, so Australian rare earths, as the name may suggest. Other ones in there, so global lithium, European lithium, American West. Are they actually, do you want to finish SNS? Because that's your showing the tight, explosive movement, the VCP breakout, the B-wave breakout, good volume on the day, breaking through 8.2. I think that's where you got up to.
Yeah. No, that's had a nice move there. So that's the sort of setup we're looking for. So there's a few in the sector there that obviously in this quarterly momentum list that are getting a bit loose. That's the one thing I noticed there. Some of those, So we just don't want to. We want to avoid that looseness there. I thought ARU is still hanging in so far. So it's had that pretty strong move so far.
Because we were watching it.
Yeah, it's come off a bit here, but you kind of want to sort of see that consolidate and hold here. So you just got to watch that one there. AHK. See, there's that tight move and the whole thing. So a big sharp move and the whole thing tightens up and then builds. And that's really, really nice BCP there, Chris, as well. So because the one thing you notice through there is the volume just dries up in here, so no volume. Then it starts to emerge again, and then it takes a little swing higher. It does sort of tend to hold here. But then it really goes again. It basically jumps out here and then follows through. So that's the type of thing we want to see, that strength, consolidate, tighten up, and then start to re-emerge again. That's the key there. Just got to be try and avoid the really volatile names there. So FML's had a ripping run here. Really 40 cents to 240 there. So it looks like it's probably all done and dusted, but so far it hasn't had too much selling in it. And it's held the 20 here. And we did see a re-emergence of volume come off that last low there. So yeah, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. It could tighten up again. We just don't know. So it's already had that first powerful leg consolidation, second powerful leg consolidation. So we've still got to watch it here. Don't dismiss that stock there, because it could tighten up again over the next few weeks or the next month here and set up again. So that's the things we sort of got to watch here. I thought SKK looked interesting. Again, just had that show of strength. The whole thing's pulled back and tightened up there. Didn't see too much, I like the fact that sort of volume dried up in here. Then we saw a little bit of a burst there. Saw some secondary volume. We'd prefer to sort of see lighter, but still in okay shape. It's a bit small for me, but I like to sort of see that a little bit squarer, but still potentially in an okay position there. LRV, which is on that list. I think it's
resources.
Yeah,
lithium, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's in that sort of antimony and lithium space there. So another lithium name there. So the lithium names have stayed pretty firm there. I noticed Pilbara has been one of the stronger names there. Mineral Resources is sort of still stay pretty firm here. This looked like a bit vulnerable there, breaking the 20, but the one thing I did notice, I was talking to a client about this, was that I'm not seeing any volume or aggressive selling coming in here yet. So that's probably that's the plus there. So I think that LRV, again, it's got a little loose here, but it is holding up pretty well. Hasn't sort of, staying in the sort of top tier there. But yeah, you probably want to sort of see this consolidate a bit more. So it's just a watch there. TOE, yeah, it's getting a little loose, probably looser than you'd like to sort of see. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the 20-day moving average is probably just something to keep an eye on there, because it hasn't did break the 10 the first time, but it held the 20. This is sort of similar there. So yeah, the only thing I will say there, Chris, is not a ton of volume in here, not a lot of selling going on. So even though it's sort of had maybe first and a second leg here, still not really seeing any, not seeing super aggressive selling in here. So that's a bit of a plus for it. So it'd be nice for it to tighten up a bit more. But that's a watch for me as well, just because we're not sort of seeing any aggressive selling there. TVN's a bit small for me, but there was a really nice BCP there on the, show of strength, and then a long consolidation and then basically breaking out there. So breaking a little B wave there around 12 cents, breaking out to a new high, 52-week high there, around 13.5 cents. This by catching all this volume here. So when you see big moves and big volume there, that's when you can get a bit more follow through. So, just interesting there. We're sort of seeing that's a pretty wide range down day there, but not much selling going through. So you can get the 1 day selling, which we often sort of see at the high, but we haven't seen, or even today, there's still no selling here. So this is definitely a watch, TBN, just because we're not sort of seeing any aggressive selling there. Last one there I thought was interesting was just GL1, just because we had that nice sort of move here, some pretty good volume all the way through there, and then the whole thing sort of squared up here. Oftentimes when you see this, kind of rejection and that sort of candle where you sort of see the sell-off there, that can sort of stall the market for a while. But you see the whole thing just sort of tightens up here. Doesn't really hold the 20. It sort of breaks it sort of slightly here, but it just the whole thing does sort of tighten up again and then breaks through again. So, and again, like the volume's been pretty strong, so not showing too much weakness at this stage. It still looks pretty robust. That's kind of that's sort of the quality of momentum. That's the ones that I thought looked pretty interesting. There's plenty.
Did we cover EUR? Well, there was one more lithium name. It's European lithium, EUR?
Yeah, EUR just a little loose there. We're seeing 3 heavy days of volume as well on the downside. So 48 to 24 cents. So literally we've halved in 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well, maybe 3 sessions. So that's, it's not showing that strength that you want to sort of see, So, yeah.
So that's a good solid. There's a huge group of critical minerals in there. We've all seen the news of the signing of the $8.5 billion deal, $2 billion to be deployed in the next 6 months. So who's going to get it? There's a good punt as to who's looking the best. Outside of that, you went through some of the other setups within other thematics on the ASX that had strong momentum. Some of the members noticed the medical space, and we know that on Tuesday you talked about CSL and some of the healthcares. But for the leading momentums, I think LDX is one chart in the top 30, and then AYA was a very strongly requested. We had many members asking to see what AYA looked like.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Look how strong's that. I mean, it's pretty much held the 20 all the way through here. So, you had a little minor break here down after you get a 52-week high, so breaking here, but then but what you did see there is you didn't see any selling. So even though it's sort of just gone below the 20 there, you didn't see any selling there. And then first day up there, we go to a new high within 1 day. So tighten up here again and push through. So it still looks pretty firm here. I mean, it's getting away from the $244 there. So you're a fair way. I think DroneShield got maybe 40-50% away from its 50-day moving average a couple of times. So that's something to keep in mind. So go back and sort of study the strongest names and see how far away they get from their 50-day moving average from a percentage point of view. So if you start to get and that's $4 down to $2.40. So that's $1.60. So, you're looking at what, 35-40% away from, so I think Drone Shot got something like 40 to 45% away from its 50-day moving average, maybe once or twice. So that's the extent. So that's why you just got to be careful when they looks hot here, but it is getting a long way away. So just keep that in mind. It's just a bit like that episodic pivot, sort of they can jump up there, but they jump up too much, then the risks are stacked against you, so
Needed to pause a breather.
yeah. And that's actually just sort of something I've learnt with these momentum names. Having looked at some of the strongest names, and when I was looking at how far away they got recently, because like a lot of these trends have gotten vertical. So I was looking at how far away they got. So, 360 got around that 40%. I think Drone Shot got around 50% away from its 50-day moving average at one point, which is pretty cool. But it just tells you that I think if you're getting that 40-50% away from the 50-day moving average, you are getting you're getting away. So, so for me, that's like, you're trying to preserve your profits, trying to capture some of that heat there. So I know you got to follow your rules and process there, but just keeping that's a point where you maybe got to start to tighten up, maybe even harder, because you sort of don't want to be giving, if you're using a 50-day, that's a 40% away. Using the 20-day, that's still what, 290. That's still 33% away. That's a fair give.
Going up a fair bit of profit.
Yeah. So we don't want to give back too much if we can help it. So, but you also want to stay long. If you chop this out too early, you missed them. Yeah. So just almost understand, if we go back and study some of those biggest moves in the past, have a look at how far away they can get from that moving average, and then just don't look at it from a dollar point of view, look at it from a percentage point of view, particularly when you're looking at sort of certain sort of type of stocks. So I think you got to treat sort of 20, 40-cent stocks differently than sort of dollar stocks and maybe $10 stocks as well. Just put them in different baskets there, but just, it is brilliant. But that's had a great move here, but it is getting a long way away from that 50.
Well, another one in that healthcare space is Luminous Diagnostics, LDX. So not in the CSL Ramsey that you looked at on Tuesday, but it's still, that's lofty as well. Percentage-wise, we're a big way away from that 50-day moving average that you're talking about. Technically, what do you see on that chart?
Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with the chart here. We're pretty healthy there. We didn't sort of see too much sort of selling pull back here. Just a smaller name, so it's a little bit. Then they don't sort of tend to,
Bomb as well.
Yeah, the technical analysis isn't as smooth there. You don't get the sort of tightness there, but really, it's traded pretty nicely. There hasn't been anything erratic about it so far here. So, it still looks pretty robust. I mean, we've had the last 5 or 6 days up there on reasonable volume, nothing too crazy. So, oftentimes, one of the things to watch out for is actually a spike in volume. So if you run, and then all of a sudden you see that big volume pop, that can be a sign of exhaustion. That's kind of like, it's oftentimes, that's for the smart money, or maybe the people who are inside here are starting to let stock go, because people who have been in their stocks for a long time, who have the big holdings, they're usually looking for an event. So oftentimes it might even be news. So the stock might run up. All of a sudden, good news comes out. Found this ground. They're trying to find that liquidity event to actually get out. And that's sometimes, I know it's
counterintuitive, but they have to show the noise.
Oh, why did we sell off on that great news? That's a great, but that's what they're looking. People are looking to get out into those type of events. So you got to be careful with sort of the smaller names, because that's how the insiders can get out. So, and they're not often concerned with price, because they got in so cheap and so low that they're just looking for that liquidity event. So you just got to be careful of that coming through here as well. And then
I'll still be an example of like what we saw with critical minerals.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's some of these small names too, where they run a lot and run quite hard. just be wary, particularly the metals and stuff there, because they do tend to will raise capital if they're not sitting flush with cash. So that's why it's important to sort of see how much cash each company is sort of holding. It's different if they've done the IPO raise recently and they've and if they're saying, oh, we don't, we'll be cash flow, or we won't be going to market. But if they're burning through the dollars and they're only they're down to the last 4 or 5 million, then that a great nice spot in the share price is a good time to raise money. So keep that in mind. That's all. Just understanding that as well. But each stock's different.
And I think the last one, FML, Focus Minerals, FML being the last request on that one.
FML, yes. I mean, this one's obviously been pretty strong here. It's just, if you look all the way along there, Chris, it's held the 10 the whole way until the last 4 or 5 days. So, I mean, that's been a really, really strong stock there. It had that pop, consolidated, and then it's hugged the 10 here. So, really, that stock did not break the 10-day moving average until the 20th of October. So, Kalamagi is the sort of stock that he would love to trade. So that stock that's sort of showing real strength, tightening up, staying above the 10, hitting the 10. But as soon as it crosses the 10, he's straight out. So the concern here is that it's now, after such a great run, they're holding the 10. It's now broken below the 10. So, yeah. So just you're in that stage where you're either going to have a correction in time or a correction in price. So if you get a correction in price there, then, or even in time as well, you just mean time's money. So if it goes sideways, you're not going to make money as well. So as Minabeni says, you want to be in the market the least amount of time, to make the most amount of profit. So, it wouldn't be, those traders, those professionals wouldn't be sitting in there right now.
And I love it. That 50-day moving average is, well, at one stage was about 100% or 50% away from the current price, which tells you just how extreme it is. And that's probably a good point. If I can, I'll do the screen share to show, because you were talking about the quality of momentum, the companies that were rolling over, and how extreme the market has been. And it's been extremely hot, but it's actually come off the boil a little bit, as we kind of alluded to at the very start. And we'll give some context as to how much that has started to pull back just in the short space of time, because you were saying that there were so many opportunities on the market, and this is what members see when they log in. So they get this data every day, updates at about 2 p.m. What you were saying is, like, back here is when the market, this top left-hand chart, we were making new highs with the momentum profile time and time again. And we were way up here on the cumulative distribution function. So we're making new highs, and the probability, we were way out here pushing to the right, creating fat tails that financial markets are known for. Quickly, we've just kind of scaled back down into this area here, which is we're just above 1 standard deviation away. So that tells us kind of how much heat has come out of the best momentum companies on the market, and how it's just started to take the edge off. All while the index is still trading, it's volatile, but it's at the same level it was last week. And then if we just look at the dartboard side of things, if we're going to find any random company on the ASX, what's our probability of finding one that'll go up 10% in the next month? It's just started turning back down, go from 16 to 15%. So these are just giving gauges of, okay, well, how much heat's in the market? It's still hot, but it's cooling down. And that's where we go to you, Gary, and say, well, are you seeing rotation in the market? There's a whole way to filter companies that we have, but we look at the rotation in between the different sectors, and then you look at it with the thematics as well. So when we look to the Launchpad, you're working through the companies that are starting to gain momentum this week. So we have the momentum leaders, we've looked at those, but the ones that are starting to gain traction, and what's standing out to you in the Launchpad this week, because you're talking about rotation. So what's coming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the two sectors, obviously the rare earths there, we've seen some of that looseness in there, and also the gold stocks as well. You're seeing like a lot of golds have gotten loose here this week as well. So we've had that, gold was off 6%, and then most of the stocks were off 10%. So they are now getting loose, gold stocks as well, which is what you don't want to see. You want to sort of see them tighten up, consolidate that. So that's what so one sector sort of starts to break down, other sectors will start to emerge there. So the sectors that I sort of were talking about was some of those defenses like sort of healthcare. So we saw a few healthcare names. So I saw ACL, which is on the list, has had a bit of a pop there. There's a few other sort of healthcare names as well. Not so many in the top 30 here, but we just saw a few healthcare names sort of starting to emerge. I mean, and the other thing we did sort of see, Chris, which I think is really interesting, is that we're starting to see some of the oil and gas plays emerge as well. So we've seen Beach Petroleum's had an update and the stocks had a bit of a pop. Woodside's had an update, stocks had a pop, and Karoon's had an update here, and had a pop. So we've had sort of three in that sort of energy, oil and gas sector have their third quarterlies, and obviously they've all pulled back here, and so their third quarterly's been pretty positive. We've also got the US potentially putting sanctions on Russia here as well, which could affect that market as well. So we've sort of got potentially catalysts there. So you remember sort of the lithium had, the Chinese lithium mines. We had two things. So we got the Chinese lithium mines got shut down, one of the biggest mines. That sort of was a boost for a lot of the lithium names. And then we sort of saw Trump and co, starting to take stakes and in some of these lithium plays as well. So we got catalysts for a run there. So it's interesting there that we've actually, oil and gas here, we've got a potential catalyst for a change in character, and we've seen a show of strength there in that sector. So that definitely caught my eye this week.
If anyone's a skeptic, they can run through and have a look over the last couple of weeks, actually months now. And before those news announcements, we were actually talking about those two on the launch pad, as in lithium showing up and then rare earth elements showing up as well. Yeah. So they do show precursors. It shows up, and this is exactly where we identified. So we're leaning on you to identify and connect the dots between those showing up. And some of the MEMS actually asked about oil and gas. So good on them. But what's
Well, I think you're just going to be looking across that energy sector, because we've talked about this probably all year, Chris, is that we've definitely seen rotation across the different areas. So, we saw the coal stocks have a good run, under cooled off, and had another run. And we've seen uranium stocks have a run, have a cool off, have another run, So oil and gas has had that run that's cooled off, potentially might be having another run here now. So we've definitely seen natural rotation throughout the last sort of 12 to 18 months in that energy sector, because we all know that energy's there's great demand for energy here in the years ahead. No questioning that. But the stocks and the sectors will go up and down. I mean, look how volatile like Bannerman is. That's in that in deep yellow. Up and down, up and down. There's some big moves, but also some big corrections there. So you've got to be careful with this market overstaying some of these moves. I mean, just look at how volatile Woodside's been, up and down, up and down. That's the sort of nature, and that's sort of something that if you look through those 70s high inflationary markets of the past, we did see some big moves at energy stocks and some big declines and big moves as well, and then precious metals as well, some big moves up and some big moves down. So that's the great to traders, but for an investor to sort of sit in there and just hang through some of those some big drawdowns in those sectors as well. So
lighten up the ride.
Yeah, so you just got to understand that from a momentum point of view, that those, they will run and they will fade then. So apart from, Beach has had that nice jump there, so good volume as well. It's big, nice, juicy volume there. So, we sit back here, we wait for this thing to retreat, put a higher low in, maybe tighten up, consolidate. But yeah, it's just the early signs there. I thought Judo looked pretty interesting there. We're sort of getting the emergence of a little bit of a BCP sort of set up there. So it'll be interesting to sort of see whether that holds there. The only thing that does worry me a little bit is just, never like to sort of see these sort of spike highs there, see how they get, it can just sort of lead to a longer consolidation. And so that's the only thing there, but it is the whole thing potentially could tighten up here. So it's just one to watch there.
Well, while you're on judo in that financial services space, you'd mentioned Iris earlier. Those who don't know, we're actually looking at an Iris screen right now, which is what dropped out on Gary earlier in the video. But they are on the launch pad this week because they are gaining momentum. And how do you see that chart looking?
Yeah, so that's again got a bit of a VCP happening here as well. So it's had that sort of jump and then consolidating and sort of tightening up here. There is talk of corporate action there as well. So so it's probably a little loose, getting a little loose here, but the thing tightens up here. Yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on there. It does seem okay. It's, I'd love someone to come in and make it better.
Oh, please.
But,
At least the industry's been begging for a good 15.
But yeah, but instead of just charging us more every month and taking stuff away every month, it'd be nice if they actually put some, like a relative strength line would be awesome. Chris, there we go. There's a first idea for Iris. Put on, not RSI. We're talking about a relative strength rating. So basically, how strong the stock is compared to everything else. That would be a great addition.
But for those who don't have it or are stuck with Iris like us and don't have that, we have the whole momentum list, and members can filter the whole market based on that RSI that we've created. We're digressing. We've got Cedar Woods in that property space, interest rate sensitive. We look like the jobs market isn't what we expected a couple of days ago, and bang, out it goes.
Yeah, so it's interesting there because obviously show of strength there, sort of held nice and tight there. Didn't do the undercut, so sometimes they come back and they'll just undercut the previous low. So that was 733. I think it came back to 735. So it just sort of stayed nice and tight in there, but then it started to come out here and then it's gone on there. So sometimes these sort of these names, they can, when they tighten up there, they can break out there. I noticed something like T&E. I thought this was going to set up here, but it hasn't. It's just sort of made lower high after lower high there. It just hasn't sort of got going. That's getting a bit too long in the tooth now, Chris. You prefer to see it, maybe a little three-wave or tighten up and then break out. So, that's a lot sort of shorter in time frame. And it's just sort of held tighter as well. Once they start to break down, it's not ideal. LGI, I thought was interesting there as well. Did have that big pop and then did face some selling here, but it has sort of absorbed that, and they've kind of been just sort of hugging the 50. It's a little bit erratic, that stock, not very.
It looks very difficult to trade for oil stock. It looks immense.
But the stock does seem kind of firm here, so does seem to be ticking away. I notice credit CCR has that's kind of been building here as well. So a bit of a smaller name in that sort of credit space there. This one's been around for a while. They kind of promised a lot and looked like a pretty interesting business there, but price action just hasn't been so good. So, want to keep an eye on it. It's an interesting business there. I'm
wanting to see a VCP in the last 9 months on that. I mean, probably a draw one in, but
it just still hasn't really, still hasn't gone to a new high here yet. So it's
close.
Yeah. Interesting there. It's just disappointed that business there in terms of promised a lot, really hasn't delivered there. Thought this was pretty interesting, this IGL there. Just because I think this has sort of shown relative strength there, Chris, as well. So it's been a pretty strong rally throughout the year. And we've sort of pulled back there. There was a little bit of selling on this on these couple of days here. But since then, it's had a bit of a rally and pull back again. But it does seem to be sort of just drying up a little bit. So we've still got a series of lower highs in place here. So we definitely can't be jumping in here. But I've just noticed the volume has picked up a little bit, and this sort of can tighten up a bit more. Possibly could emerge again because it's a relatively pretty strong chart there. Definitely showing relative strength there on the term as well. So it'd be nice for it to sort of sit on top of that high, hold above that old high as well. So it's just one to watch there, see whether it can actually re-emerge again. So I thought that was interesting. ACL, which I mentioned there, has popped out of the range. So again, just a lot of those healthcare names sort of showing strength. And we've seen CSL's had a bit of a bounce here as well. Just a few names sort of starting to pop out of that, in the healthcare names as well. I thought this was pretty interesting. RTH, that RAS technology, has just been nice and tight here out of this low. So it's had a nice little run and then gone sort of sideways there. It's not the most liquid sort of stock here, but yeah, just showing a bit of strength there as well. So thought that was interesting. ILA, which I think you mentioned previously there, that's, this has had a pretty strong run here. The one thing I noticed through here, Chris, has had the little ABC. I just haven't noticed any selling through here. So that's left it in a pretty interesting position there, sort of now trying to re-emerge. So for me, it's sort of one to keep an eye on, just because that's strong trend, pretty strong, pretty good volume. It's had a nice little three-way pullback, held the 50 so far. Love to see this tighten up a bit more, but definitely one to keep an eye on. FID.
Back in that financial services space.
Yeah, it's sort of holding on there. So it's had a good run and then sort of done sideways there. So I think Judo's a bit similar there. So yeah, just whether it can tighten up here. It's sort of, look, maybe this is one that it might set up a little cup and handle here. So just one to keep an eye on. The last one on the list there was, second last was actually Domino's. I actually did trade this one, Chris. I know it's not an awesome setup here, but I noticed this stock here has had a few times there where it's come out of the gates pretty hard, tightened up, and then gone again. And I noticed, I think it was IEL, and I noticed 2 or 3 other stocks did exactly the same as this recently. They've come off the low, good volume, and then gone really nice and tight under the 50, but just hug the 50 and then pop through it. So I thought, that's a really interesting setup. So I zoomed in a little bit here because I wanted to sort of see a B-wave break here. So I wanted to sort of see some tightness and then a bit of a pop here. So I think I did buy this little break here. Did do a little throwback. Luckily I got my stops just a little bit lower here and it has kicked on here. So now I'll sort of tighten up here just because I know from my experience we're seeing a few fail here, but yeah, I thought this looked okay here. I know sort of the sector's been pretty firm as well. So we saw KSC has had a nice run as well. So a few names sort of starting to show strength. So I just thought, look at the sector there, but look, I just love that little tightness in there. There was just no selling there. The volume was about half, same amount of days. Something McLaren talk about was sort of like, seeing that impulsive move at tight consolidation, like a little bit of a tight flag, and then coming through there. So,
well, while we're on this chart, I got to ask you, because you tell me this on air and off air, sort of, you've trading this below the 50-day moving average. I can't see a 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I'm really glad you zoomed in on the half hour to show us a really nice setup, because I was going to question, what do you do at part of the market?
In theory, actually, I am actually above the 50. So I've actually, I bought it just above the 50 here. Yeah. I bought it on strength. I didn't want to, I just noticed to stay a little tight there. The problem, Chris, is there's not many great signals out there at the moment. So
super extended, and see some consolidation.
So I'm looking to sort of something to soothe the boredom. This one was nice and tight. That's what I liked the most about it, was I was risking.
When you show me this chart, I completely see it. I get it.
Yeah.
If that was a daily, I'd be all over that. So
yeah. So it's just we're just not getting great signals out there. That's the reality. So if we're going to play in this market, my view is, we want to play in this market, I still want to sort of be the same stuff. So I want to see that show of strength. I want to see that tight price action. I want to see the low risk entry. I just play a bit smaller than I normally would, because it's not typically a trending sort of bullish sort of stock. It's really kind of coming off a bit of a low here. But I have noticed this stock in the past has had that 3-wave type of move here. So really this, to be honest, it might just go back up to the last swing low here around $17. That might be it. But yeah, but there's you're just not getting great signals. I think MAD was the last one there. That did a nice little cup and handle sort of underneath the high there. So, and did sort of break through. So that's the type of thing you'd like to see more of. See the sort of stock have that strength, tighten up there. But I'm just not seeing. Everything's now I'd say most of the stocks I'm seeing are actually have had that burst and now they're getting loose. There's not many stocks that have had that burst and are tightening up. We're just not seeing many of those sort of tight setups here at the moment. So, yeah.
Well, to that point, I'd say the members have access to seeing all the coils. So we actually rank them all and find those little compressions that you're talking about, which made us showing us right here before that breakout. You had it with Domino's Pizza. So they're the little coils that we look at in this type of the market where we're seeing huge extension. The momentum list has completely exploded with massive rallies. And from a relative perspective in the last 12 or 18 months, we have heaps of performance in that side, but finding the congestions is actually hard. So this is the market where I really focus on those coils. And sounds like is that kind of the setup that you're looking for in this market is I need to see that real compression or
Yeah. It's just not so, I mean, it's all, just, you're just not seeing great. You're not seeing great there. I'm literally, I think I've only had like 3 or 4 longs in the last 2 or 3 weeks that I've entered. So just not sort of seeing that. And so I think 3 of those, the last 3 that I've actually traded out of, I've got a 2.5 profit on half, and then the other half's got knocked out at break even. So nothing's really gone on. So that's sort of, as Minavini would tell you, that's telling you that it's not a hot momentum market as well. So, so if you're going to trade there in that market, there you're either sort of sitting cash or you play the short side. I played a little bit of short side on the gold there, which was been kind to me. Or you look for sort of something to that that is sort of nice, something that tightens right up, gives you some kind of low risk as well. Yeah. So look, that, to be honest with that, Domino's only played half trade, and my risk is probably less than a quarter of my normal risk as well. So yeah, it sounds weird, but I mean,
is the singles in a very hot market, which seems counterintuitive to momentum trading. And it's a fun.
The discipline, the really hardcore discipline trader probably doesn't take that trade, but it does it does meet my correct criteria just. So I'm permitted to take that trade because it does meet my rules. But it's only just, but it's probably a B plus rather than an A plus. Yeah.
I'm glad you graded it because I was about to ask you. So I think you're probably a similar thing here. So I haven't had as many trades either. I'm still long some, and they've got nice trailing stops behind them. I've stopped out of some as well, so that's okay. Capture some. It's not that my watch list has been thin. I've had plenty in the watch list, but so many that I've been trading or had on this watch list, like ASM was one, for example. Okay, I didn't get full set because it just gaps so much. And some of them are just running so hard and they gap on the open. That's not me. I don't chase. I'm an end of day trader and open. That's fits with surfing and cycling. That's how it works for me. But are you finding that you've still got a watch list? You've still got a fair few companies to track. Just the setups aren't getting to the A plus for you.
Yeah. I've sort of traded Mesa Blast sometimes. That sort of came out of a nice little cup and handle, had a bit of a spurt, but then it's whacked back as well, and then looked like it was going to bounce off the 20, and then it did for a day, and then it's come back again as well. So you're just not, stuff like that I'm seeing all the time there. I saw some of those coal stocks who pushed through like a little bit of a B wave there, sort of, showing pretty much strength, but then they've pushed on a few days and then kind of failed as well. So they just haven't, like a lot of stuff hasn't sort of followed through here, I've noticed. So, I was watching some of those rare earth names as well, but then that can just be pretty loose there as well. And I'm always sort of worried about when you get that, you've had that run, and then the news comes out. That's just, yeah. So to me, it's like gold, when I see people lining up and the mint's running out of silver coins and stuff there because,
Demand through the roof. But it wasn't there a week ago.
Just a rational exuberance at the top of the market. That's, that's the sort of, those type of things. Things happen in market. If you've been in the market long enough, you sort of know those,
out of character behaviors get you picked up. They go,
Yeah. It's weird because the market's a little bit of a tricky phase here right now. Kind of almost using a little bit more because it's not breaking through. It's almost, you're almost better off to sort of see the names you want to see, and then wait for the stocks to retreat, maybe come back to the moving average, just to sort of get a lower risk entry, right? Because I think if you're buying breakouts there, they're kind of tough at the moment, so they're either going to be really tight, or just going to be what your size is, because we're just not seeing those sort of follow through, on a lot of those stocks at the moment. So yeah, so just the health of the market is probably just not beaming here at the moment as well. So yeah.
Well, if anyone wants to guide of how to find those compressions, what we call the coils, and a whole setup of how we do that ranking system, it's in Momentum Profile memberships. We'll put a video to the right-hand side where we walk through step by step how we use that to identify those coils and compressions that we're talking about right now. And we say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.